Hi everyone, welcome to Ukulele Beginners with me, Matt Stead. In this video, we're going to talk all about tuning your ukulele. So within this video, we're going to cover a few different subjects regards tuning your ukulele. So if there's one particular area that interests you, you can follow the directions on the screen and fast forward to that particular point in the video. First of all, I'm going to show you the most common way to tune your ukulele and explain about the actual tuning itself. Secondly, I'm going to show you how to tune your ukulele using an electronic tuner. Next up, we're going to look at tuning a ukulele by ear, and that could be really interesting to some of you that have even played a little while. And then lastly, I'm going to provide a resource of tunings for the different ukuleles so you can actually tune your ukulele to this video at any point in time. The most common tuning for soprano, concert and tenor ukuleles is re-entrant GCEA. Now, I'll do a reference of that at the end so you can actually tune your ukulele to the video. But just remember that the strings go from nose to toes, G, C, E, A. Good children eat apples. That's how I remember it. A little girl that I teach remembers it as good cheetahs eat antelopes, but whatever works for you. Now, the brilliant thing about this tuning, also called high G tuning, is that the middle two strings are the lowest in pitch, C and E. The outside two strings are the highest in pitch, G and A. That's what gives the ukulele its traditional bubbly sound. Because when we strum a ukulele, the first string that our finger hits when we do a down strum is one of the highest, the G string. When we come back up for an up strum, the first string that your finger hits is the A string, the highest of all. So the dominant sound that we hear when somebody is playing the ukulele are the highest two strings in terms of pitch, and that's what gives it its lovely bubbly sound. The next most common ukulele tuning on a soprano, concert and tenor is low G tuning, also called linear tuning. Now this is where we replace the string nearest our nose with a low G string. Now this string is still a G note, but notice it's a whole octave lower than this G note. High G, low G. High G, low G. Now, the reason a lot of people like to tune their ukuleles low G is that it gives you a few extra notes to play with. On a normal high G re-entrant tuned ukulele, the lowest note that we can play is this low C. But on a low G, I have a few notes below that low C. There's a few more notes to play with. Another reason a lot of people like it is it gives the ukulele a little bit more depth as well. So when you're strumming, you hear the lowest note to the highest, and it gives it a bit of a deeper voice. Now that's not for everyone. It does have some disadvantages when it comes to some particular styles of playing, and some people find that low G quite boomy if you're not careful when you're playing. GCEA wasn't always the most common way to tune a ukulele. In fact, in the early days, particularly in the first part of the 20th century, the most common tuning for ukulele was A, D, F sharp, B. The relationship between the strings is exactly the same, only all of them are tuned up a whole step. Notice how shrill that sound is. That was one of the common tunings used by George Formby and a lot of performers, because before PA systems were really powerful and microphones were really widely in use, it really allowed the ukulele to cut through a jazz band situation or for a solo performance. If you look through a lot of old songbooks, you'll find this tuning quite commonly, and it's often called D tuning because the lowest note involved is a D as opposed to a C. I really love to tune my sopranos to D tuning because the higher string tension and that shrill quality really suits that way of kind of old time playing, which I really love. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for beginners though, because obviously having a different tuning to how most people play ukulele, you'll be playing different shapes and things can get quite confusing. Baritone ukuleles are most commonly tuned D, G, B, E, and quite often the D string, the one nearest your nose, is a low D, just like the low G we showed earlier. That gives baritone ukuleles a glorious deep tone, but I wouldn't recommend as a starter learning on a baritone ukulele, because just like I said with the last tuning, most other ukulele players will be using GCEA tuning, so it makes it quite hard to play along with them because you'll be playing with different chord shapes. For most of the rest of the video, I'm going to go back to the most common ukulele tuning, high G reentrant, G, C, E, A. This tuning is often referred to as the My Dog Has Fleas tuning. It's a bit weird really, but when you sing, my dog has fleas, just the way that most people sing those notes together, is the GCEA that the ukulele produces. My dog has fleas. If you think that's a bit weird, just forget about it. Put it in a drawer and pretend I never mentioned it. Now, I think it's really important to tune your ukulele every time you play it, sometimes even more than once during one session of playing. Because the ukulele was once a living, breathing object, most oftenly a tree, tiny little things like humidity and temperature will affect the tuning of your strings as the wood expands and contracts. If you've ever left your ukulele on a hot day in the boot of your car or a cold freezing day, you'll quite often notice the ukulele goes out of tune. So before I start playing each time I tune my ukulele, you'll also find that if your ukulele is new from the factory, it can take the strings a little while to settle in. So you might find the first few weeks you're having to tune quite often. One way to try and speed up the process is just to ever so gently tug on each string all the way along. Just a few times, and it will help the strings stretch and settle in. We alter the tuning of our ukuleles using tuning pegs, and these come in many different forms. Traditionally, these were friction pegs, where the only thing keeping the string in tune was the friction of the peg going through the wood of the headstock. Now these you only have to turn a tiny way, left or right, to affect the tuning. And just make sure if you have friction pegs that this screw here is tightened up nicely so that it's not too tight against the body, but not too loose that it detunes itself. A lot of modern ukes come with geared tuners. These are the ones that have a little gear on the back which alters the ratio of the turn of the peg. These can be a bit more accurate, and it means you have a bigger turn to increase or decrease the pitch of the string. You'll also quite often find geared tuners on slotted headstock ukuleles like this, where the tuners come out of the back of the ukulele rather than coming off to the side. The type of tuner, where it's located on the ukulele, and even the way the string is wrapped around the peg will determine whether you have to turn counterclockwise or clockwise to increase the pitch of your ukulele string. Now don't worry, you'll soon get a handle on your ukulele which way is the right way, and if you turn one way and it goes wrong, not towards the note that you need, just try the other way and you'll soon work it out. Now enough talk, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of how to actually tune your ukulele. Now the easiest way would be to buy yourself one of these electronic tuners or to get an app on your phone. There are loads of different types and brands of these electronic tuners, and they all perform roughly the same function. So I'm not going to try and sell you one or recommend which one I like. Most electronic tuners on the market will do a great job. The ones that I try and avoid are the ones that have quite a big stalk here between the head of the tuner and the clip, because they often break. These tuners work mostly using the vibrations caused by your strings vibrating on your ukulele. So when you attach them, you want to attach them to the headstock of your ukulele, trying to make sure they're on a piece of wood, not on one of the tuners, just like so. Okay. Next up, we switch the ukulele tuner on. Now, most modern ukulele tuners can be used for guitar, violin, bass, and ukulele. So what you need to do is make sure that this little tiny letter down the bottom displays either C for chromatic, which means you can use it on any instrument, like that, or U for ukulele. If it ever says G, that's going to try and tune your ukulele to a guitar tuning, B, a bass guitar tuning, and V, a violin tuning. So you want to avoid those three. Just keep pressing it until it's either U or C. I personally recommend having the ukulele tuner on C setting for chromatic. When you do have it on U tuning, if your ukulele is way out of tune, sometimes the electronic tuner tries to be too clever and it tries to guess what string you're trying to tune to, and it will choose the wrong one. And that can get beginners into a right muddle when trying to tune their ukulele. So I recommend starting on C, which will tune your ukulele to the nearest note. Now we've already learnt that we can have two strings with the same name, the G string, for instance, that can have two tunings, higher or lower. So you need to aim towards whichever way your ukulele is tuned. A high G string will have a thin string, almost the same size in terms of width of the string as the A string. A low G string you'll be able to notice straight away because it will have a much thicker string than the A string. It will quite often be wound, sometimes not, it can be unwound, but it will definitely be much thicker than that A string. So if your string is in traditional reentrant tuning, this string here should be roughly about the same thickness as this string here, and that's what we're going to tune to. Now at the end of the video, I'll give a demonstration of the correct tuning for your ukulele, which is this. And if you're not sure whether your string is tuning too high or too low, you can go back to the video, have a listen and make sure that it matches. Before you start to tune a particular string, have in mind already what note you should be tuning to. So the one nearest your nose is going to be a high G note. Then just use the alphabet to help you. If you play the string and it is a letter in the alphabet that is lower than a G, we're going to keep tuning upwards, turning the tuner until we have a G displayed on the electronic tuner. Now most tuners, to get them perfectly in tune, you want that little tiny line in the middle to go right to the middle of the curve, and often it will light up green or red or another colour to let you know when you're dead on. If you move the tuning peg and it goes away from the centre, move the tuning peg in the opposite direction until it goes to the centre. If it goes too far the other way, we quite simply just move the tuning peg back until it sits dead in the centre. Now you'll notice as I'm moving the tuning peg and checking the tuning on the ukulele, I'm constantly but consistently picking the string. And that's because if I just play it once and take my finger away and don't do anything else, the tuner runs out of energy. It can't sense the vibrations. I don't want to play too fast like this or too hard because it confuses the tuner. So just every couple of seconds, pick the note and try and get that line to go right into the centre. And when you can play it consistently and it keeps going green or it's roughly in the middle, you're dead in tune. Now keeping it in C mode, we go through the rest of the strings and do exactly the same thing. So I've purposefully detuned this second string down from the top, which should be a C string. Now if I play it, you can see I have a B. Now B is behind C in the alphabet, right? It's lower than C in the alphabet. So I need to keep tuning up until my ukulele tuner displays a C, which it's done. Notice though, it's still not dead centre of that curve, is it? So I need to keep tuning up until it reaches the centre. Hopefully it'll turn green and I know I'm in tune. The same will happen with the E string. Let's detune it a bit. So D is below E, so I need to tune up until it goes to the centre. Now if I was trying to tune the E string, this third one down, and it was saying an F or an F sharp, I know that F is higher than E in the alphabet further along, so I need to come down in pitch until I get right in the centre of that E. Now, as I mentioned before, different types of tuning pegs, you'll turn them one way or the other to decrease or increase the pitch of the string. If you're not sure, just turn one way. If it goes the wrong way, turn the other. It's that simple. Now, with the A string, the one nearest the floor, A is the first letter of the alphabet, right? And there's no H note. When we get up to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's as high as we can go, or a G sharp. There's no H note. So when we're tuning this A, if it goes to a G or below, we have to tune back up to an A. If it goes the other way, B or C, we need to tune back down. And then we try and get that pin to go completely in the middle. And we've tuned that A string. If you have a low G ukulele, the C, the E and the A strings are tuned in exactly the same way. The G string, you do exactly the same thing. And most ukulele tuners, if you have them in C for chromatic, as I recommended before, it will find that G note in exactly the same way. It will find a high G note. It's another reason that I like to tune in chromatic mode, because on some ukulele tuners, if you have it in U mode for ukulele, it doesn't recognise a low G and it gets very confused trying to work it out. So if you just tune to C chromatic mode, just keep pressing it until that letter at the bottom says a C. That would tune to the nearest note, and you can use the techniques we've used so far to find the note. Now, how about tuning if you don't have a chromatic tuner and you want to tune by ear? There's a few different ways you can do it. First of all, you could literally find another ukulele player or a piano or another musical instrument, and you can tune the notes so that they match. That can be also a good way, even if you're tuning the ukulele to itself, to find a note to start with. So for instance, you could play a middle C on a piano and match it to the C on this string. What you can also do is tune the ukulele to itself. Find a string that you think is most likely to be in tune. We're going to start with the C string because it's the lowest string, and we'll use a technique to use the strings and tuning of the ukulele itself to tune to itself without the need of a tuner. We're going to start to match all of the other strings to this C string now. What I'd like to do is play the 4th fret of the C string. That means the 2nd string down the C string. You're going to pick not the 1st, not the 2nd, not the 3rd, but the 4th fret. And you'll see on the diagram over here that that 4th fret of the C string is an E note. And we know that this string underneath should be an E as well, right? Because that's our E string. So 4th fret of the C string is an E, and this string here open is an E. So what we try and do is we try and make sure the two strings are matching. Always start by picking the string that your finger is on. So if this E string didn't match and it was too low in pitch, can you hear how that's too low? We would tune it up until it matches. Still a bit too low. Still a little bit too low. Now it matches. And we're in tune. If it was too high, we would bring it down in pitch. Still a bit too high. Still a tiny bit too high. Until it matches. So now we know that the C string is in tune with the E string. So let's tune another string. If you have a look on your diagram over there again, notice that the 3rd fret of the E string is a G note because we have E, F, F sharp, G. Now we know that this string nearest our nose should be a G as well, right? So they should match. So you remember, we test whichever string our finger is on first, we play, and then test to see that the open string matches it. Now, if it was too low, see that's lower, we'll bring it up until it matches. See how it now matches? So now we have the C, the E, and the G strings all in tune. So lastly, we just need to make sure this A string is in tune. Now, if you have a look at the diagram once more, you notice that if you play the G string at the 2nd fret, we have an A note. And the bottom string nearest the floor is an A as well, so they should match. So you pick the one that you have your finger on is on first, and you pick the one open, and if they don't match, you need to make them match. So let's make this A string lower. That's lower, isn't it? Higher, lower. So we need to make it higher in pitch. Still a bit lower. Until it matches. Now, you don't have to be a musical genius to get them to match. They don't have to be dead on the first few times you try it. But the more you practice it, the more you'll be able to tune in so that they match. And then when you play a chord, check, it should be in tune. And that is how you can tune a ukulele to itself, even if you don't have an electronic tuner or any other instrument to close hand to play to match it to. Now, there is a stop check at the end that we can do to make sure that the C is in tune as well. There is no other low C on the whole of our ukulele. So what we have to do is compare it to a high C by playing the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, even though they're a whole octave apart, you'll soon hear if one is out of tune. If I detune the C, not harmonious at all. So I keep tuning it up until they match. And that's a nice stop check to check that all 4 strings are in tune. Now, just to check that you've got it right, and also just in case your gizmo has gone completely wrong and your tuning has gone way off and you want to make sure you're in the rough ballpark, I've tuned this ukulele up to reentrant GCEA, and I'm going to play each string in time, and you can tune yours to my ukulele and just double check it's roughly the same. So here we have G, C, E, A. Here's the high G. Just play yours, check it's roughly the same. Here's the low C, 2nd string down. Here's the E string. And finally the A string. Here's the same thing on low G, so you can check your tuning. Here's the low G. Here's the C. Here's the E string. Here's the A string. And all together. Hopefully you found this video useful. Remember, tune, tune, tune when you're at your ukulele club. Tune before you start playing, tune in the middle, and you could even tune afterwards to make sure it's more likely to be in tune next time you pick it up.